Nioh 2 is a polarizing game, and impressions of it change significantly depending if you have played first game or not. If this is your first Nioh game, then you should buy it if you like complex builds and challenging content, at least up to a point. Just don't go back to Nioh 1 then, because there is no point, since this is exactly the same game as Nioh 1. I mean copy-paste same with some added stuff and thankfully reworked living weapon. Same locations, same characters, same enemies with couple of added ones, same skills, same weapons, same armor sets, same guardian spirits. It is one of the laziest developed games I have ever witnessed. I'm tempted to call it an asset flip, but I won't. It is still fun for the most part though. This review is from perspective of a player who put hundreds of hours into Nioh 1, as that is very important to emphasize. As I have already said, Nioh 2 is almost exactly the same as Nioh 1. You might argue that it is to be expected because story is direct prequel to Nioh 2. However, that was their choice to make, and they chose to do so because they clearly knew it would be so easy to develop because of assets used in first Nioh. Story is also not very good. There are some new things worth mentioning, like addition of 2 new weapons, dual hatchets and switchglaive. Both vastly different from one another, but also use same type of skills like most other weapons, just with different animations. Honestly, I don't mind that much. Nioh has vast variety of skills and movesets for each weapon, and no matter if skills work similar, they are still fun to discover and use. Nioh 2 adds more complexity to the mix with Yokai shift, Yokai abilities, skill customization, Guardian Spirit customization with soul cores and anima. Yokai shift is living weapon reworked, and now we have separate skill tree that focuses on that specifically. I prefer Yokai shift to living weapon, because there are 3 different types of shiftlings we can shift to with different movesets and mechanics. They look also quite cool, and I do like this change overall. In Nioh 2 we can create our own character also, which is awesome, considering how forgettable and pointless main guy was from the first game. Can't even remember his name. In this one, however, our created character does not speak a word. Instead, nods like a retard most of the time.
She doesn't know. Oh, see? She was all the time. Watch. Shaved ape. Oh.
Well then, similar to main guy in Nioh 1, I guess. These new additions and mechanics add more complexity to already very complex game. I'm not against it, but problem is everything from Nioh 1 is still here. Useless sets, skills and stats no one will ever use and build around. Half of Nioh 1 needed to be deleted and rest polished, balanced and some of it reworked. Instead it is all still here, like for example Sword of Meditation skill that is just pointless. It bothers me a lot that they didn't fix any of the issues plaguing Nioh 1. Combat is still awesome with all the movesets, cool animations and variety of tools at our disposal, but problem is that they didn't fix issue where enemies one-shot you half of the time and the rest of the time normal skeleton enemy can take 80% of your health with one spear poke. And I am talking about normal enemies here encountered everywhere. It is frustrating and annoying. Some would say that dumb phrase get good, but that doesn't really apply here because next to that developers have decided that it would be a great idea to add on top of that constant ambushes where bastards shoot relentlessly at you. To make matters worse, their fire rate goes up in New Game Plus and it all becomes absurd and annoying quickly. Combat encounters lack finesse completely, as game throws stuff at you at insane rate at times and everything hits so damn hard. So do we for that matter. I honestly hate that, as it removes any sort of excitement and tactic and ends up being in the end who is gonna one-shot who first again. And again, most fun in Nioh 2 will be during first playthrough when you have to be careful and where encounters last a bit, but it would be so much better if enemies did not have such insane damage. No finesse whatsoever, even though combat looks cool as hell and is so smooth and fluid. It is a shame that more the game progresses, more it plays like hack and slash game rather than Dark Souls or Bloodborne. I don't mind dying at all, but dying due to my mistake, not by chance. I don't know how many times happened that I started doing active skill and the enemy went millisecond after into charging unblockable attack while I was stuck in animation and one-shotted me. Worst thing about it is that Nioh could have been such an amazing game if they tweaked these things, because combat can be so fun at times it is addicting until frustration kicks in due to enemies neglecting all limitations put on you and stuff being thrown from all angles at high pace. I'm not saying it is impossible to deal with all of that, far from it. Nioh gives you plenty of tools to deal with it all, but a lot of times it can be difficult to get your bearings amidst all that chaos, and lots of times it doesn't even matter what you do because you are getting screwed no matter what. Or enemies are gonna end up being one-shotted and you don't have to worry about a thing. Rarely you're gonna end up in some kind of a middle ground between being screwed or one-shotting enemies, and that is the unfortunate thing. Nioh 2 also does not have an endgame yet. Instead, they plan on taking our money for upcoming DLCs to make it complete. This method was alright to some extent for first Nioh, but now doing the same thing doesn't go down well for me. Especially how cheap and lazy this whole game is. Important part of the game is keeping gear up to date, and in New Game Plus playing around with tempering, remodeling and soul matching. In Nioh 2 there are plenty of sets and weapons to choose from. Too much, to be honest. Almost every set from Nioh 1 is here, as well next to new ones, and half of them, if not more, are never gonna be used by anyone and should have been scratched. Your inventory after every other mission will be almost full of crap that you have to scroll through, check, compare and see what you need and what is worth keeping. Nioh is anything but boring game, but this is only aspect of the game that bored me to tears. Same crafting system is here, which is not bad and I like it, but again there are too many things that are worthless when it comes to stats on gear and RNG factor involved with tempering. Oh, the bloody RNG. For every armor set and weapon in the game there is a smithing text that can drop from bosses. These smithing texts allow crafting of whole sets but with reduced stat requirements, and also crafted equipment is similar to your level, which is important. However, these bastards drop never. To make things worse, there are a ton of smithing texts for weapon skills that can be acquired too. Nothing makes me happier when I have to beat certain boss 1500 times and maybe I get something in the end, god damn it. RNG needs to be completely removed from every game ever. It is the worst system that artificially prolongs game time. Saving grace for this horrible system that has been pasted exactly as it was into Nioh 2 are revenants of other players we can farm for gear. Now imagine when player base dwindles, which it will, and soon, and revenants become much less frequent. I wouldn't want to be in shoes of new Nioh 2 players when farming for gear in that case. Nioh 2 has many same locations as Nioh 1. I mean exactly the same. God damn, what lazy game. New locations have such convoluted layouts with so many cheap death mechanics, it is just stupid. I'm talking about story missions here. Sub-missions are fine for the most part. Every story mission I was into I got lost and was running around in very linear game otherwise, trying to find that path that leads forward. And then you step a little bit wrong and here is your cheap death. Now to do it all again, fight a lot of enemies to get to that same place. Or just run through them all. Which leads to another problem. All of this will piss you off so much at times you're gonna neglect everything and run straight to boss, but die a couple of more times during that process as well. So basically game is encouraging skipping everything. Here is one example of situation that occurs more than anyone would want. Bridge with holes in floor on all sides. Enemy waiting on the other side. No fence. Fight starts, another enemy from half a map starts shooting at you while you are trying to fight enemy on the bridge while avoiding falling to another cheap death. You block enemy attack or ranged attack from Sniping Bastard, which pushes you a little bit back, and now you are dead because you fell from the bridge. Gamepad shatters. Can't recall if Nioh 1 had so many cheap deaths as the second one, but this all takes away from fun factor, which Nioh has in abundance but fails to keep it that way due to lack of finesse and bad approach to combat situations. Best things about Nioh were always combat and builds variety. Amount of builds you can play around with is insane, and for a third-person Souls type game, Nioh is unmatched in that category. Well, there is another problem here. Everything that worked in full Nioh 1 version works here too. Additional things to build around are based on anima, yokai abilities, and prolonging yokai shift as much as possible. Hatchets and Switchglaive can be built the same way any overpowered build in Nioh 1 was built. Use magic or X buffs, weaken the enemy, choose active skill, and that's basically it. However, you don't have to play like that, as playing differently makes the game more fun, but also more frustrating because game encourages overpowered builds due to grinding and cheap deaths. Better balancing is required to encourage even more build variety. Technically, Nioh 2 in action mode on PlayStation 4 Pro performs wonderfully, with no frame rate drops and looks good overall. Music and sound effects are also fantastic, but even that stayed the same. Same music themes from Nioh 1 are here as well. Nioh 2 should have been an expansion for Nioh 1. New Nioh players have no reason to go back and play Nioh 1 because Nioh 2 is exactly the same game with slightly updated graphics and added mechanics. Nioh 1 players would be better off waiting for Nioh 2 to be fully complete and then play it if they crave more of the same. Nioh 2 is fun and frustrating, spectacular and cheap, wonderful and lazy. Depends if you have played Nioh 1 for the most part. Nioh 1 was always for me 7 out of 10 game, which translates to good game. Even though Nioh 2 is the same game with added mechanics and complexity layers, I cannot reward this lazy copy-paste approach, so I'm giving it 6 out of 10, which translates to above average game. It is a shame because Nioh 2 could have been one of the best Souls type games around, if not the best. They just had to improve upon the original. Instead, they decided to keep everything, as though they already had perfect game, which they clearly didn't.